Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
I love sports.
Sports.
When it comes to
Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
The best way for us to win is to do it together.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
This one's special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies.
LB, you know this. Yesterday I was at the airport with you, of course, right? And Brian Jones. And a couple stopped me. They gave me this look and they go, "Now you be nice on the boys this week." And I go, "Wait, are we mean?" She's like, "Sometimes when they lose." And then I had somebody else say to me, "You guys are too easy on the team." Okay? This is probably 6 hours between the two. One was on social media, one was on text, and the other was in person. And I thought to myself, you know what? Good. I'm glad people are hearing both sides because we're going to give it to you authentic with real thoughts. And, sometimes our emotions get the best of us. Sometimes they don't. And that's how we're going to break down that loss to South Carolina here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio, the Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. David Nuño, Olin Buchanan. OB, after that 39-second monologue, you begin with your thoughts on what transpired this weekend in South Carolina.
You forgot to tell them about the interaction we had with the Clemson fans that came over to commiserate.
Oh, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, we feel your pain.
They came up to, what did she say to us?
She said, "Yeah, y'all had a bad day, so do we."
Yeah.
We said, "Yeah, we feel your pain." I asked Mike Elko in the the post-game press conference if he felt like maybe that team the Aggies had a hard time refocusing after such a big emotional win over LSU. And he said, no, he doesn't believe that. And to me, if that's not the case, then I'm kind of alarmed because that didn't look like a team that was ready to play A&M. And if they were ready to play and got gashed so severely by a offense that has, for the most part, been somewhat average and not able to move the football against a defense that has been good, but has given up points, 36 to LSU. Yep. Then I think you have to take a step back and kind of reevaluate what this team is. If they weren't, for whatever reason, ready to play, and a lot of times, you're not. If you're a developing team, that's not uncommon. I'll give you an example. Notre Dame wins a very emotional, exciting season-opening win over A&M. Meant a lot to them. The next week at home, they lose to Northern Illinois.
Yep.
It happens. Now, what championship teams and championship caliber teams do is they're great at dealing with that. How many times had we seen A&M go and play just a tremendous game over the years against Alabama, but just not quite able to pull it off?
How much of the way we feel right now is the score? Because I think I personally don't look at it as a 44-20.
No, they scored 2 touchdowns in the last 4 minutes.
Right. That I think even though they had a chance with 5 minutes left, right, there was still a prayer. I just felt that they were battered, and this was a game that A&M was not. They didn't dominate the line of scrimmage on either side.
Right, and that's kind of alarming because, quite frankly, the South Carolina offensive line has been a point of concern and criticism in South Carolina.
But how much of that, though, OB? And look, I'm sorry to cut you off. How much of that is the fact that they weren't wrapping up? Because they were able to get to Sellers. They could have had 39 sacks on Sellers. They got 0.
And that takes me back to where you ready to play, where you completely focused. And I know he's a big, strong kid. So are we then to say, okay, well, they can only get sacks against guys that are frail, right? You have to be ready to play the team you are facing.
Did you see the quote from Joshua Simon after the game?
I did not.
They asked him about the field storming, which I thought was interesting. Thanks for the field storm, guys. It makes me feel better. That the fans hit him harder than A&M's defense did.
To the victor goes the spoils. And quite frankly, when did he get hit? Every time I looked up, he was wide open.
Yeah.
It was a colossal failure on defense, really on offense too. Not as colossal. And I thought
colossal second half. They didn't do anything.
It's true. And through all the issues that they had, they're early in the fourth quarter with a chance to cut it, if not to 3 points, to 7. And Marcel throws an interception on the sideline. He says he was trying to throw the ball away and couldn't get enough on it. I think it was first down at like the 28. So
that was a bad one.
Yeah, if nothing else happens, the only person who was great in that game was Randy Bond.
There was one great and one really good.
Well, Randy Bond was great.
He was great. Jabri Barber was pretty good.
Yeah, and so was now also good was Amar Daniels. I mean, he did have a 56-yard touchdown run. I thought the decisions to go on fourth down were questionable. Mike Elko says, hey, when we got less than a yard to go, we're going to go for it. Okay, fine. But especially the first one, if you're going to go for it, in my opinion,
give it to
you
Le'Veon
just go.
Moss.
Well, he wasn't in the game then.
Was he hurt already?
He was already hurt, I believe. Or maybe he wasn't.
No,
maybe he wasn't.
I think
but
it was
still.
It was Marcel lining up.
Oh, you're right. But if you're you're right. You're absolutely right. Yes. But go in there and just go for it, because it looked like they were very apprehensive. Are we going to go for it? Hey, let's get in the shotgun. No. Now we're going to look like we're going to go for a sneak. Now I'm going to come out of it. Now I'm going to look like we're just hoping that you're going to jump off sides. Oh, no, we're going to go for it. And with every second, South Carolina's getting more jacked up to stop them.
Yeah, so much at stake. And look, I know they have a little bit of a buffer because everything is still possible. What this does, though, is make you think, is this the team I thought they were, or were they taking advantage of being a really good home team?
I think they're still a very good team. I think they're a team that can still win the SEC championship, because they can. Are they the team we saw in the second half against LSU, or are they the team we saw in the second half
against South Carolina? Because as bad as they were in the first half, and they were atrocious, you know what? They should have, if not for, again, terrible defensive mistakes, they should have had the lead at halftime. They should have had the lead at that. And by the way, I don't think they should have given up that opening drive touchdown, because had they sacked Lenore Sellers, and this was a theme in the game, right? It was the theme.
Had they,
right? Because they had them. Mm-hmm. That's now 3rd and 16, 3rd and 18. They're punting. I'm sorry,
they're not. Quarterback that doesn't throw very well.
Right. And now, but again, these are ifs, and you can't live on ifs. You have to live with results. And the Aggies were not ready to play in that game.
That's what I think. I think they just came in not ready to play mentally. Maybe not understanding. I'm sure Elko and the coaching staff tell them, guys, you're going to be walking into a hornet's nest. This is going to be their biggest game. It's going to be a great environment. And I think they heard it, but didn't listen.
I want to defend Marcel Reed. I don't think he is as bad as some people say. He was not good in the second half. The team wasn't good in the second half.
Right.
But I thought Marcel Reed was, he had those 2 turnovers very late. Well, one early in the fourth quarter, one very late. That's not good. You can't go on the road and lose a turnover battle. So yes, he doesn't get A or even a B because of that. But they were moving the ball.
They were moving the ball. And again,
and without their, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to bring it up, without their best running back, and without Chase Basantis, who affects the running game.
Absolutely. And the fact of the matter is, look, the first interception completely on him. The second one, I don't even care. You know why? Because that game was settled.
Yeah.
When he threw the second one. Yeah, where
the fumble,
whatever led to the whatever was the turnover. I don't even care about that turnover because the game was decided. But yeah, that interception, it was bad play. I I would have liked to have seen him try to run. Here's the difference. Sometimes he did, and sometimes he was successful. But when he went to run, the South Carolina defense, and it's easier. He's a slight guy as opposed to a big one. But the South Carolina defense attacked him to get him on the ground.
Yep.
The A&M defense approached Sellers, much to the tight ends, as if they were playing flag or touch.
Right.
Hey, I touched you. Why are you still running?
I just saw the interception there on camera, and oof.
It was bad.
It was bad, yeah. He's got to throw it more out. I'd rather.
Or run.
Yeah, or take the sack.
Or whatever, anything but that. You can't throw, and he was trying to get it out of bounds, he said, and just didn't get enough on it. Okay, nobody's perfect.
How are you guys processing this loss right now? You can text us on a couple of ways. You can call us or text us. You can text us at 979-693-1150. That's the Little Sluggers text line. Or you can call us up on the Boss Firearms hotline, 979-693-1150. Let me hear from you. Let's go around the room and say hi to the people. We go behind the glass. We say hi to the Nick Savage. Nick, good morning, buddy.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
What's up?
Well, you know how I feel about this, David. I feel like the real turning point in that game, or at least might have ended up differently. South Carolina still could have come out on top, but the very end of the first half, A&M scores to take the lead, right? And they give up a few penalties on defense, and they allow South Carolina to get a field goal to tie the game at the half. I feel like if that doesn't happen, you know, A&M gets the ball out of halftime. Who knows how that would have turned out differently, but it just, again, don't know if they would have won, but they definitely would have had a better chance going into the second half. But that's a turning point how I see it.
Nick, can you look at the second segment on the show and see what it says as the turning point? Just take a little glance at it.
SC scoring a field goal in final 1:10 of first half.
So I guess we can't do the next segment. Just kidding with you, Nick. He's talking about the turning point, which we'll talk about in the other half. I have another one. I have two that I put, and the one he just brought up is one of the ones that I talked about was the field goal with a minute 10. You know, they went down the field, a couple penalties, and they ended up scoring.
Yeah. Mine will be on that drive, the first play of that drive.
We'll hold that thought. Okay. We'll do it. By the way, where are we?
We are in the cool zone.
The holistic planning
cool zone.
Let's see if I can magically
make the holistic planning logo or whatever.
By the way, you can invest in prosports.com if you want to invest in pro sports. Go to investinprosports.com, holistic planning cool zone. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. That's where we find Jackson Oxney. Aggies got there at the Angry Elephant. Jackson, excuse me. What's up, buddy?
What's going on? How are you guys this morning?
I'm more rested now than I was.
Rested, but still
battered.
Still battered, yeah.
I'm trying to stay optimistic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trying. Is
Trying.
Is it difficult?
No, it's not difficult.
Okay.
The time changes really helped me. It's helped boost my mood a lot. Just having the sun come up earlier.
Yes. Yeah. It does make a difference.
Makes me happy.
Yeah. Me too. What do you have for us?
I got two statistics that I want to share. One on offense. A&M's 144 yards on the ground marked the second lowest total of the season behind 125 rushing yards at Mississippi State. The total rushing offensive numbers don't look that appealing at 3.4 yards per carry, but if you take out Amari Daniels' 56-yard rushing touchdown, the Aggies only rushed for 88 yards on 41 attempts, which is 2.1 yards per carry.
Yeah. They took away your identity, and your identity left the game hurt as well, because I think your offensive identity is running the ball with Le'Veon Moss. And Amari Daniels obviously very capable too, but a different style of running back than Le'Veon.
Not without a doubt. So you got to find ways, and you knew that going in and playing that South Carolina defense, there wasn't going to be a ton of points scored.
Right.
If they'd been able to get 27 or 30, which was an outrageous assumption, you could have won the game if the defense showed up.
What else, Jackson?
And then on the defensive side of the ball, the Aggies produced 0 sacks, obviously, against a South Carolina offense that coming into the game, they were second worst in the nation in sacks allowed per game, which was at 4.6. And A&M missed a season-high 25 tackles, according to PFF. And the Aggies have missed now double-digit tackles in 4 of their last 5 games.
I think a couple things are interesting here. How many sacks did they give up against LSU A&M? 4?
A&M gave up 4, so they gave up
6.
7. I thought they had 3 and gave up 3 sacks in this game.
Okay, so it's 7-ish sacks in 2
Mississippi State
games.
got 2.
And then the sacks that A&M didn't have. If you look at that game, I'd love to go back and write down shoulda sacks. Like the word shoulda, had them. right? And I don't know if anybody's done that, but I'd like to see, like, because it felt like they had him 6, 7 times at least that they should have had taken him down behind the line of scrimmage.
Well, they had definitely opportunities, and then you ask yourself, why didn't you? Why?
Why do you think?
Well, again, I think they just showed up not mentally ready to play. Maybe it's because he's a big, strong guy, and I'm not ready to play that guy. I think, like the guy from South Carolina said, I didn't get hit hard all day. I don't know that was an A&M team that was ready to play. Now, Mike Elko said they didn't have any trouble refocusing, and I have to believe what Mike Elko tells me because he's always been a pretty upfront guy. But my eyes told me something different.
Well, and the penalties, man.
The penalties are ridiculous. It is a significant problem that's not getting solved. And there's one guy in particular that's really becoming, as good as he is, he's becoming a problem in that he starts making as many bad plays that affect the game as he does good plays that affect the game.
All right, let's do this. We'll hit a break. We'll come back. We'll do the turning point. We already kind of discussed one. OB's got a similar one in that same vein, and I got a different one to talk about as well. We can get to your phone calls, 979-693-1150. That is the Boss Firearms Hotline. We're talking Prize Picks. PrizePicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to receive $50 guaranteed dollars once you play in $5 lineups. It does make these games fun. If you were expecting a huge DJ Lagway game, well, it came close. Until he got hurt.
Yeah, Florida might have won had he not gotten hurt.
I think they would have won. Because even with their third string Yale transfer backup, they were in the game.
They were in the game until he threw an interception late.
Yeah, sounds familiar. Well, anyway, you can do more than or less than stat projections. If you know his name, you can search for it. I don't know his name. Warner. Look at you. Of course you know his name.
Aiden Warner.
You can do more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll. If you're right, you're going to feel really good about the money you're making. If you're wrong, guess what? You'll try it again the next week. It's only have to play $5 lineups. Again, that website is prizepicks.com/TexAgs. Use the code TexAgs to receive a guaranteed $50 once you play $5 lineups. It's Prize Picks.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Liucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Liucci sent you by.
When we're back here on TexAgs Live, we're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio, the Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. He's OB, I'm DN. Let's get into the turning point, OB. So Nick already gave us his turning point, which was the field goal. Somebody on the YouTube page says Le'Veon Moss going out for the rest of the game could have been the turning point. What is your turning point?
Well, my turning point is right after A&M had taken a 2017 lead. They had played just poorly and somehow had the lead. So I'm thinking all the momentum is with A&M. So then they kick off. There's 1:08 to go. And I'm thinking, hey, here's a chance to take the lead at halftime, maybe even extend it.
Yep.
And it's they lose 1 yard on their first down, and then I believe, and then on second down they try a deep shot and it's incomplete. So you're thinking, okay, it's going to be 3rd and 11. You're going to get off the field. They're going to punt. Maybe you can get the ball at close to midfield, throw a pass or two, and kick a field goal and take a 6-point lead. But you get a late hit, and Shamar Turner came in, not only hit late, but he hit low, and it's a 15-yard penalty. And now Shane Beamer's on there and said, wait, I got the ball at the 39.
I can move
and I got a kicker too. And then you think, so I go back to that play. Now later, you think you're still going to get a shot because you get a fumble, and Cassius Howe knocks the ball out of the quarterback's hands, picks it up, and runs in their end of the field. But you get a holding penalty. But
that could have changed everything.
But none of that happens if you don't get the 15-yard penalty.
Right.
The late hit, and penalties have become this plague. It's a disease that Texas A&M can't get rid of. They had 6 defensive penalties, just on defense. You shouldn't have 6 penalties, especially this time of year. They had 6 penalties on defense for like 63 yards. And I think one of them was encroachment. They're usually late hits.
Right.
There's 2 late hits. There was an unsportsmanlike conduct by Shamar Turner and that was on a fumble that A&M got and would have had the ball at midfield, but no, they had to move it back. So you do the prize picks. I wonder when they're going to start putting A&M's
penalties more than or less than.
But I thought that was a play because that late hit gave South Carolina and their coach an opportunity to say, hey, we can score. They did. They regained momentum. A&M, I'm always harping on this. A&M is one of the worst teams, and I'm talking about not from Mike Elko. I'm saying going back years about finishing a half. So once again, they don't finish the half strong. South Carolina gets the field goal, so they tie it. They take momentum in the half, get a stop on A&M's first position. They get the ball and go down and score. And at that moment, momentum changed, and it never changed back.
So this, I don't think, has anything to do with what happened at the game, but I'm going to read this text from Texas A&M, number 15, 7-2 Elko era. That's his name, or Ezra's World. Nuño, can we make sure tomorrow on TexAgs you mentioned that they didn't have a single penalty on South Carolina Saturday night? That's no excuse, but my God, the holding calls missed were atrocious. I didn't see it from the press box view, but that's not why A&M got punched in the mouth.
We've been complaining about holding calls since probably since A&M joined the SEC. The SEC doesn't call holding often. I mean, it's got to be so obvious and right in front of them. They just don't. And I agree. I think eventually South Carolina had 3 penalties for 25 yards. But that doesn't change what A&M was doing. And you can't get to the point where you're just hoping to get calls to win games.
Yep.
How about make a tackle?
So I'm going to give not a turning point, the game is over point.
Okay.
And to me, this is easy. It's the Marcel Reed interception.
Yeah.
The game is over because fourth quarter, you got to get points there. And yes, they didn't score on that interception. Thank goodness it wasn't a pick 6, but you stopped them. I think you made them punt 2 more times. But it was so rare to get the ball that close in the second half to a scoring opportunity. You throw that interception, that game is basically over because you gave up 7 or 3 points in that, especially with the way Randy Bond was kicking, which then means you're a possession away from tying the game.
Yeah. It was first and 10 at the 28. And he just he said he's trying to throw it away and
on it.
It happens.
That happens. I want to revisit the three things that I wanted to see because they didn't happen, OB. Our defense score, theirs doesn't. Didn't happen. Run it down their throats, didn't happen. They did it to us. So far, this is not going well. Marcel with a deep shot for the score. Didn't happen.
Yeah.
Didn't happen. No bueno.
It's true. I mean, nothing happened. You had that moment in the second quarter where I thought you were going to win the game, where they rallied and had a big play and then got a big fourth down stop.
Yep.
But was it not in the second half? When did they went for it on fourth down again and just ran straight into the middle of that defense where they were having trouble running? And I know they needed less than a yard, but
you remember last week I told you, and I think I've said this a couple times this year, the intel that I receive about teams, I don't care anymore. The stats that I receive about teams, I don't care anymore. And I said that last week because we had heard how decimated the Notre Dame offensive line was, and we're licking our chops thinking, all right, we're going to get some sacks. Mississippi State's secondary is one of the worst in the league, and you can run on them. And South Carolina, you can run on them potentially because nobody's run down their throats, and their offensive line is terrible. All that intel doesn't matter when a team is game planning for what your strengths are. And that's what I think we've been seeing is teams have game planned against what A&M is good at, and that's why sometimes those things don't matter. You think it gives you an advantage, but when they game plan to protect themselves from you in that situation, I guess from an A&M perspective, does it even matter, OB?
No. In fact, I've said this before, that A&M, and maybe it's other teams, but I just cover A&M, but they have a tendency of never capitalizing or exploiting on what their opponent has had trouble with. I talked about before when I remember going to South Carolina, and South Carolina was one of the worst rushing teams in the country. Now A&M won that game, but Travion Williams, they kept Travion Williams under control. And I know I'm going way back, but I'm just using that as an example. A lot of times I'll go into games and I'll say, this is a team that's been really had a problem here, and maybe they don't have some success, but rarely do they just go out and exploit what another team does poorly. We hear that South Carolina has one of the worst offensive lines in the country, not just in the SEC. They've given up more sacks in the nation than everybody except Oklahoma. They don't have a great running game, and yet they do whatever they want to. So I think what you have to do is you have to take a step back and you have to ask yourself the hard question is this A&M defensive line as good as we all thought it was and it was hyped up to be? Because they're not getting sacks, but on top of that, they weren't keeping contained.
Right.
I think they maybe have a lot of really good athletes.
Look, I'm not going to allow this game to change because they lived.
Well, they had 2 sacks against LSU late.
Yeah, that was late.
Okay. They've got 19 sacks. 6 of them, a third of them came in one game against Missouri.
Stopping the run has been, other than this most recent example, they've been elite at stopping the run. They were the furthest thing from elite on Saturday.
Right. And then you ask yourself again, why? Why? Has other teams just not had good run games?
Yeah. Let's get 1 or 2 text messages in before we hit a break and bring on Jackie Sherrill. We go to the news and the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Jackson, I apologize. I just woke up today.
That's okay.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah, I got a text from Merrill Kirkpatrick from 979 number. Merrill says, I love Coach Elko's comments post-game. No coach speak, took all the blame, no excuses. The coming weeks will show what we're really made of. I am confident in our coaches and our team. Our record in the SEC is still one of the best. Gig 'em.
Everything's out there. Everything's out there. You gave away your mulligan, but you had a mulligan. Everything's out there. I still think they're a team that can win the SEC championship, but you got to get fixed whatever happened last week. If it wasn't because they weren't ready to play, then there's some huge issues that have to be fixed.
How worried are you about Auburn based on what we just saw?
I respect every SEC opponent, especially when they're playing at their house, right? And no SEC road game is assured. I do think A&M has a far better team. So I would expect A&M to go and and beat Auburn. But if I had to put my percentage, I'd say I'm 33% concerned.
Set a break here and toggle 1775. We had a nice meal when we were in Charlotte and in South Carolina. It was a nice meal, but it wasn't like 1775.
No.
Look, 1775. I'm not overrating it. I'm just telling you, it's the best barbecue you're gonna have. That's the commercial. It's over. It's done. Like, it's the best.
Yeah, I really can't. I can't lie. You know, I've eaten a lot of barbecue and a lot of good barbecue here in
this town. There's some great barbecue. You got some
Bryan
choices.
College Station.
This is the SEC of barbecue.
Yeah, this is the best there is. I love it. In fact,
this is a Saban-led-esque barbecue joint, though.
Okay.
I'm just saying, like, that kind of dominance. Not him personally.
Okay.
R.C. Slocum led 1775. There we go.
There we go. I'm more or
like,
Jackie Sherrill even.
Jackie Sherrill.
Jackie Sherrill to R.C. Slocum level barbecue dominance.
Yes.
And so I can get on board with that. I know this. My sister-in-law is coming to town Friday, and if she gets here early enough before they're not sold out, I may suggest, hey, let's head over to 1775.
They're open Thursday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until they're sold out. Online ordering turns off at 10 a.m. 8203 Raymond Stousser Parkway in College Station, 979-492-6241, 1775TX, BBQ.com. Everyone, David Nuño here in a moment right now for Snaps Clothing. They are the makers of the only official licensed Texas A&M Pearl Snap shirts. I'm wearing it right now. This is part of their Tailgater collection. It's built for game day. My friend Edgar over there is doing great work. You've got to check out the clothing. It's the Pearl Snaps. It's the cool look. It's kind of hip, but also Western. You'll love it, and they have great stuff there. They'll keep you comfortable as you're repping your Aggie gear, and it's the place to go to get it. Whether you're watching the game from home or tailgating before watching the stands, these shirts have you covered. Head to snapsclothing.com. That is snapsclothing.com to gear up for the season. Welcome back into TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. The Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. We're working on getting Jackie Sherrill on the program. Just so you guys know, you trusted Jackie to lead the Aggies to Southwest Conference titles. Now you can trust his son Braxton to lead you to the best rates in home loans and refinancing at Texas Best Home Loans. Score better rates and lower fees with Braxton Sherrill at txbesthomeloans.com, an equal housing lender. All right, let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center as we work on getting Jackie Sherrill on the program. Jackson Oxney, give us another text, please.
Yeah, Roger in Rose Hill, he's trying to stay optimistic as well. He said, I think that I'm not as upset because it seems like we are still further along in year one of a new coach than I was expecting.
Sure, little distance. OB, I think you and I talked about it a couple weeks back. Like, if you would have told us you'd be 7-2 with a chance at the playoffs at this point in August, we'd all sign up for it, right?
Yeah, right.
But in the moment, knowing what it could be, it doesn't feel as good, right? Because you're like, wow, we were just 6-1. We just beat LSU. All we got to do is beat teams that were better than statistically on the standings, however you want to phrase it. And they didn't pass their first test after success.
Right. And again, let's be clear. I'm not saying that they're a bad team. I'm saying they're a good team that played a bad game, horrific game even. And I don't understand why. That's the thing that's concerning, because if it's because for whatever reason you weren't ready to play, and look, I know the score was terrible. It was a 10-point game. You know, they scored 2 late touchdowns to make it look like a blowout, a 24-point game. But
just like the Notre Dame game was not necessarily a 10-point game.
Yeah, or maybe some of A&M's wins, you look at it and they say, yeah, they didn't win. So anyway, it was a game I still think you could have won. But if it wasn't because they weren't ready, or they weren't as focused as they need to be, or they didn't realize what they were going into and somehow got intimidated by the crowd, or all those things, then why did you have a bad game when you had so much to play for? And you still have a lot to play for, but you were able to play, you were in the driver's seat, and now you're not. Now, you haven't given it up, but you were in first place. You were the only undefeated team in the SEC, and you let that go. Everything's still out there to play for, and I think they're very capable.
But that some people don't want to.
But now you're going to go to Auburn, and you're going to ask yourself, well, they didn't play really good at Mississippi State.
Well, I'm going to ask the group this question because I think this is an interesting way of looking at it. A&M on the road, as most teams in the SEC, but A&M on the road this year. Mississippi State not their best outing. A neutral site road game against Arkansas, dominant fourth quarter, but not a great 3 quarters. Okay, Florida dominant. They were dominant, and against a Florida team that seems to be better than what I think people think, but they keep losing, so it doesn't matter. All right. And I'm going to put Auburn. I'm going to move it here for this conversation. How's A&M at home?
Really good.
Okay.
With the exception of Notre Dame.
Okay. Can you believe a scenario that this A&M team, the one we've seen for 9 games this year, can beat the University of Texas the last game of the season?
Yes.
Okay. Sometimes in college football, it's about matchups, right? I think A&M matches up. I'm not saying they're better than Texas. We're going to find out on November 30th. I think A&M's defensive line, even if you want to believe they're overrated or not, I think matches up well with that offensive line, okay? Because they've had some problems protecting their quarterback. So if you think that they can beat Texas.
Let me find out about Le'Veon Moss's status
100%.
and Chase Bisonte's status, but yeah.
100%, yes. But if you think they can beat Texas, then what you're saying is this team can be in the playoffs. So now we bring back the Auburn game. That game becomes...
That's going to be huge.
The biggest road game of the season, because you win that game, then you are basically in a de facto playoff game against the University of Texas.
Exactly.
And that is the reality. Some people want to just be mad. Oh, we were exposed. Maybe.
They were exposed in that game.
And maybe they were exposed. Maybe some of the things that people said, you guys haven't played anybody. Okay, maybe. Then LSU hasn't played anybody. Then okay, fine. Maybe.
I will say this. At least they're probably, if you're looking for something to make you feel better, at least for the next perhaps, probably next 3 games, and I'm including the next 4 games because I'm going to include the SEC championship game. They will not play a quarterback nearly as big, strong, and athletic as Lenore Sellers, because can't even tell you who's at New Mexico State, but we know it's not the case.
Right.
Auburn, Peyton Thorne certainly isn't. Quinn Ewers isn't. That's not a shot at Quinn Ewers. I'm just saying he's not that guy. And then I'm figuring it's Carson Beck. Saying Carson Beck sure isn't.
So when we choose to be optimistic, and I don't even know if I'm optimistic, by the way. I don't know how I feel. I just know here's the reality. You're going to be favored the next 2 games for sure. You better take care of business on the road at Auburn, right? That is not a guarantee because A&M has not played well on the road, in my opinion, the last 2 road games. I don't think they played well at Mississippi State, and obviously they didn't play great. They played horribly this past weekend, right? So, but you're going to be favored in those games. If you do what you're supposed to do, and again, a big if, you can beat Texas if you are fully healthy.
You're going to
at Kyle Field?
I think, and I think probably even people at Auburn think this. I think in 4 weeks that A&M will be 9-2, 6-1, playing Texas, which will be probably 9-2 or 10-1, with the winner going to the SEC championship. I think that's what's going to happen. I think we're going to see that matchup is going to be with a trip to Atlanta on the line.
Yep.
That's what I think is going to happen because I know they're going to beat New Mexico State, and then I think they're going to beat Auburn, and then I think they're going to play Texas with everything on the line.
Yep. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. We'll come back with a couple of thoughts and Around Aggieland. Before we do that, Bird Dogs, this weekend, or not even this weekend, it's coming up on Wednesday. I'm going to be heading out to Brady, Texas.
Brady.
Never been to Brady.
Yeah, I'm I don't want to
close to Fort Worth,
West
right?
Is it? I thought it was closer to Abilene. Maybe I'm wrong.
Thought it was close to Fort Worth.
Okay.
No, I should probably know where I'm going. Jackson, Google it by the time I'm in. I think it's like a little bit past Fort Worth. I might be, if I'm wrong, then I might be going to the wrong place. And then everyone's like, it's like that episode of the Fresh Prince when Will's like looking and nobody's there. That's what's going to happen when I show up at the TexAgs Wing Shoot, November 6th through 8th, Brady, Texas. Roger Krager's going to be performing that first night. He's hanging out with us. This would be cool. I've never met him. Apparently, he was at the game, at the LSU game on the sidelines. Billy was able to talk to him.
It's only 3 hours from Fort Worth.
Only 3 hours from
kind of southwest of Fort Worth, and looks like it's.
How far is it from here?
Well, you keep doing the.
Okay, because my God, like I got to change. I thought it was going to be an easy drive. I'm over here. I'm going to have to take a shuttle. All right, Bird Dog, by the way, Airbnb for hunters. You want to go to birddogit.com/TXAGS hunt. That is birddogit.com/TXAGS hunt. That is the website.
3.5
from here.
Yeah.
Okay, so almost
3.5 to 4.
Yeah.
But 3.5 from where is it? Close to Abilene?
Yeah, it's reasonably close to Abilene. Reasonably.
Okay. I can do 3.5 hours. All right, I don't have to take a plane. Anyway, it's gonna be my first hunt. I think I'm borrowing
just an hour and 35 minutes to Abilene.
Okay. I'm not going to probably go to I'll probably just hang out in the metropolis that is Brady, Texas. I'm looking forward to it. You can watch me mess up and have some good times. Chris Harrington's going to be there. It's going to be great. Check out the website again, birddogit.com/TXAGS hunt. It's Bird Dog. Oh, hey, I'm on TV. It's TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creation. So a lot of people are laughing. I don't know where Brady, Texas. I just thought it was close to Fort Worth. It's not anywhere near Fort Worth. It's not, what did you call it? The center of Texas. Dead center in the center of Texas. So I'm glad I didn't go to Fort Worth first. I'm glad I'm going to turn on my GPS when I leave here on Wednesday.
Yeah, I would advise that, yes.
Yeah, that would be a real big mistake. Hey, guys, where are you? Anyway, time for Around Aggieland, presented by Normandy State Bank. Normandy State Bank, rock solid banking. The website is normandystatebank.com. And with that, we have the Kay Naegeli.
You know, I'm really disappointed couldn't join y'all in South Carolina, but I was...
No, you weren't. Trust me. It was a disaster.
It was a bad viewing experience, I feel like the lights and all that, they have that figured out at
it was cool.
Bryce.
I mean,
it was a great atmosphere for a college football game.
Yeah, if you don't have a rooting interest, awesome, right? It was, and I actually took video of when the fans stormed. I don't know why I didn't post it because I didn't want to get death threats. But it was a cool experience. But traveling when your team loses takes a lot more out of you than traveling when your team wins.
And let's face it, just traveling in general last weekend was difficult.
It was packed. Like
Bush
Bush and Charlotte, like were ridiculous.
But at least in Charlotte, they seem to have a plan for all the people. And
Bush, okay, we're sounding like 60-year-old men here, and I'm leading the charge, OB. But the traffic at Bush Airport, like to get out of there, was stupid. It makes me angry. Groundshuttle.com.
Old man yells at cloud. You all know that meme?
Yes, I do.
That's what's happening right now. All right, let's get to it. Texas A&M is now ranked number 15 in the AP poll, dropped 10 spots after a disappointing loss at South Carolina. They now enter their bye week. I know we will hear from Mike Elko, Colin Klein, and Jay Bateman today around 2 p.m. So stay on the lookout for that. And then as well, guys, men's basketball and women's basketball starts tonight. Men's basketball, Buzz Williams and co. will head to Florida to take on UCF for their season opener. That is at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus if you want to watch. And then women's basketball, Joni Taylor and co. will face Texas A&M Corpus Christi. That is at Reed Arena tonight if you want to go. Also on SEC Network Plus, that one is at 7 p.m., so a little bit later start. For Joni Taylor's Aggies, she's entering her third year. Should be a fun one. Over the weekend, unfortunately, Texas A&M soccer was a number 10 seed in the SEC tournament. They fell 1-0 to number 7 seed Georgia after an 18th minute goal. With a 8-9-2 record, Texas A&M has dipped below 500 in this year's play, and they will not be selected as an at-large bid in the NCAA tournament. That means their season is over. An 8-9-2 campaign, like I said. Not the best year, so we hope to see more exciting years for Aggie soccer in the future. Also, not a great sports weekend all around. Volleyball also got swept at home to Mississippi State. They are a below 500 team, so not a great loss for loss for Jamie Morrison and company. They have a 3-game road trip up next. That it starts with Kentucky this Friday, November 8th at 6 p.m. And then cross country earned a pair of top 10 finishes in the SEC championships. Those were hosted here. The men placed 8th while the women finished 10th. And then equestrian, the number 2 team down number 3, TCU, 12-18 on Friday afternoon. So hopefully we can see some more wins coming in this week and have a happy bye week.
So the horse riders kind of saved the weekend for
The horse
A&M.
riders are ranked number 2 in the nation.
And they had a big win.
They're dominating. So they're always a great program.
I need somebody to take me horseback riding.
I think that should be a piece of content we release, David.
I've done it
I think
before.
the people would enjoy that.
I went to Branson, Missouri.
Okay.
And we did a little horseback action there. It was fun. It did. Yeah. You know, I got on the saddle.
Yeah. Ridden some horses.
Yeah.
That should be the next trip that y'all go take. Not hunting or fishing, but then the next
There's a
horseback
great
riding.
movie, Kate, that I know you haven't watched.
Oh,
great movie called City Slickers. Come on, OB, you like it?
I love
Back
that
in the
movie.
day?
Yeah, I love it.
Billy Crystal basically going on this, what would you call it?
When was that released?
Cattle Drive.
Cattle Drive, there you go. This was in probably the late 80s.
Okay.
God, we're so
Very,
old.
very good movie.
It made me laugh. City Slickers 2 was good too.
Yeah, but not nearly as good.
No,
as the
part 1. It's always part 1.
Yeah.
That's always the answer. I do want to read this one. Where'd it go? Casey on the YouTube page says, if I can find it, we're down running back 1 and 2. We can beat Auburn and New Mexico State with Amari, not Texas.
Well, we don't know if Le'Veon's going to be out for the year or not.
We don't know.
We're going to find that out maybe today.
Maybe not. Maybe they'll keep that close to the vest. Regardless, I don't expect him back for New Mexico State, and probably not even Auburn.
Well, I sure wouldn't even want him there in New Mexico State. If he's just a little bit hurt, hey, you can win that game.
E.J. Smith and company and Amari.
Yeah. What's the De Niro kids, the running back, the walk-on running back?
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet he plays against.
Donato. All right, let's do this. We'll hit a break. He's Olin Buchanan. Thank you, Olin.
Yeah.
This is a Go Hour. It's over. Presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. When we come back, Tom Hart of the SEC Network and ESPN for a little bit. At some point, Billy Liucci will join us. We'll get to Billy. We'll get to your phone calls. We'll get to your text messages. You are listening to TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, here in the beautiful Rollo Insurance Studio. We'll be back in a few. We are back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is hour number 2 of the program. Billy will be joining us at some point. He's doing an interview with the folks at the SEC Network on Sirius. Right now, let's go to the Boss Firearms hotline. Boss Firearms is Aggieland's premier gun and accessory shop. They've got all you need to build your next firearm. Check them out at bossfirearms.com. And with that, we talked to Tom Hart of the SEC Network and, of course, ESPN. Tom, good morning, buddy.
Good morning. What happened at Williams-Brice Stadium?
I'm sorry, I've already moved on. I'm thinking about the bye week. I don't look back at all.
Hey, that's fair. That's fair. I respect that and I appreciate it.
A couple things, Tom, in my opinion. South Carolina is a legit good football team, and they were a bad matchup for A&M, and we were very worried about the defensive line. You lose your starting running back early in that game. That's not necessarily the difference, but it's certainly limited what A&M likes to do, especially in short yardage situations. And just South Carolina was better. They executed, A&M didn't. That's how, you couldn't tackle, you had too many penalties, and you couldn't bring down Lenore Sellers. All that was a recipe for disaster, and we said it earlier, yeah, they lost by 24 points, but it was a 10-point game, and, the white flag was raised at the very end.
Yeah, the thing that bothered me the most watching the highlights was the lack of tackling. Because to me, tackling is about 90% effort. And I understand, I don't want to be the guy that yells at the cloud. I understand how things go these days, especially once you start to get down. And the momentum in games and kind of the mindset for players. But I thought that was disappointing. South Carolina might be the best momentum team I've seen in some time because I agree they're very good, but they also are a very emotional team. And they're built for that with the pressure they can bring to the quarterback and that those defensive ends especially, but it's the entire defensive line, as you mentioned. So, and I don't think like Lenore Sellers is a good quarterback. Would he be one of the top 4 quarterbacks taken if you're doing an SEC draft? No. But man, when he gets rolling, he's a freight train. And especially, we know there are hard places to play in this league. And South Carolina deserves respect as one of those places. It's tough to play because that crowd gives them a lift when they're at home. So I think all of that stuff conspired against A&M.
Tom, look, we'll make it about A&M again here in a moment, but I just feel like this year in the SEC, it's so different because this kind of thing does happen, right? Like, you'll get a week where Kentucky looks amazing. You'll get a week where Arkansas looks amazing. South Carolina's been fairly consistent. They could have beat LSU. They could have beat Bama. But, you get these weeks in the SEC that you're like, man, I don't know what I can predict. I look at what Texas has with the rest of their schedule, backup quarterback it looks like every team they're playing is on their second or third string quarterback. But, you just don't know, right? You look at what Alabama and LSU is going to look like. I can't predict things because of and I don't know if it's because of the NIL and the transfer portal or just the lack of depth some teams have. It's very hard to figure out what's going to happen from week to week.
Yes, the parity impacts teams and individuals. And the reason I bring that up is I was just talking to a coach on the field the other night about, the new era of college football and how teams are built and the impact that has. And I just mentioned the A&M tackling, and I think this is an example here. The impact that has when things start going south, right? You're not next to a guy that you've been grinding with for 4 years, right? It's not a coaching staff can't look down the line and say, let's bring in that senior who's been with us since we recruited him in, 9th grade. No, it's a collection of talent and every team is, nobody is immune to that. So in that regard, when things start getting hard, some teams check out. It's just how it works these days. More often than it used to. And what does that mean? That means if you don't have to be an elite team to win big games. You just have to find some of that momentum, and you could pull big wins off. And I've said this ad nauseum. If you're by talent a middle of the pack team, and you can get wins against talented teams, then you can really shoot up the standings, right? Especially within a 16-team league. But I think that's the new era of college football as a whole, David, is we need to get used to this parity. And generally, I think it's really good. We've seen leagues where only, 2 teams had a chance to win the thing. We've seen all of college football when really only 4 or 5 teams had a chance to win the entire thing. Now we're in November, and there's a couple dozen teams that have a chance to be in the college football playoff and therefore win it. I don't think this is a scenario where well, yeah, there's going to be 12 teams in this playoff, but really only one or two could win. No, I think this thing is going to be wide open. That doesn't mean that there aren't teams that are more talented than others, but I think it's going to be absolutely wide open, and I think that's great for not only engaging hardcore fans of teams that are in it and involved and in a race for a conference title, but I just think kind of collecting the attention nationally with a wide open sport. I think it's good for the sport.
Talking to Tom Hart on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Tom, to further that point, I feel like elite quarterback play in the SEC, I feel like it's lacking. Like, I mean, Jackson Dart's been good at times, right? He's been really good at times, obviously. But like Carson Beck has had his issues. You look all the way around, like A&M's had some ups and downs this year. Arkansas, obviously, when Taylor Green's really good, that team can beat teams, but he's getting hurt a lot. Like, you look around the conference, and there's some questionable quarterback play. Even Jalen Milroe, who we had all this expectation for, he hasn't been the same quarterback.
I don't want to say that, and it could be a cycle, right? It could just be quarterbacks and elite play cycles in and cycles out, depending on what league you're in and what that talent looks like. But I think it's very much tied into roster turnover. And the reason I say that is, Nico Iamaleava came into Tennessee. He's a redshirt freshman. He was christened by, those folks who wear orange as, the next best thing. And he has been, by all accounts, just kind of average so far. So we were talking with their coaching staff, and they've coached great quarterbacks over the years. Not just Hendon Hooker a couple of years ago, but Dylan Gabriel when they were at UCF and Drew Lock when they were at Missouri, who set the SEC passing record. And the combination that those guys provided in talking to the coaching staff, they said, listen, those guys were elite quarterbacks but by the time they were done. But the jump from year one to year two, just having reps, A, within the system, and B, with other players, with those wide receivers, to know exactly what the timing was going to be, what the routes were going to be, that everybody was in the right place at the right time, that there's so much more blame shared by everybody from, offensive linemen to wide receivers to tight ends to get these guys where they need to be. And I really hadn't thought about it like that, but I think that's probably applicable across the board, generally speaking, as to why we're not seeing as elite quarterback play as we have in years past. I mean, think about the great wide receivers that, Joe Burrow was with his guys for a couple of years. Burrow wasn't great in 18. He was elite in 19. That was an unstoppable offense, one of the best college football has ever seen. Take any number of the Alabama quarterbacks and the supporting cast that they had year after year. You can roll in a fresh face when you've got dependable other guys at the wide receiver and running back position. So I think you're onto something. It's not elite quarterback play, and the main reason it's not is because while these guys generally have shown flashes, nobody has been consistent, and that production from elite quarterbacks is there week in and week out.
Tom, how do you look at what happened to A&M this weekend in a big picture for the overall season? Does it show who they really are, or is it bad weekend, momentum gets you, and the way we look at it, the reality is if you win the games the rest of your schedule, you'll be in the SEC championship game?
Yeah, I think it's a reminder of how fleeting the fame can be in this league, right? You don't get weeks off. Just ask Auburn, right? I mean, Vandy just smoked them. Ask Alabama about Vanderbilt. There are no longer gimmies on the schedule. The silver lining for the league as a whole is for the teams like A&M who have taken a couple of these losses they shouldn't have is, man, if you get into that playoff, you are going to be battle tested. And then you just hope you don't have to face another SEC team. So I think what it loses is all of that momentum that had built A&M into an at-large team. And now you just knock back a peg and you have to go back out there and earn it. And you have to pile together some wins. You just got to stack the wins from here all the way to the end. And then, of course, not that there are any guarantees, but it certainly takes away a mulligan. Like we thought the Texas game was going to be big. Well, now it's for sure an elimination game. as opposed to, okay, your only 2 losses are to Notre Dame and Texas. You'd roll the dice with some other big wins on that schedule against other at-large candidates. As long as there aren't bid thieves out there, like, the ACC is lurking with some bid thieves. The Big 12 got knocked back with the Iowa State loss, and that may cost them thieving a bid. And then those Big 10 teams that are just like Indiana, for example, I'm looking at them. Their strength of schedule is still not good, but, when you haven't lost a game, you're certainly in the conversation.
Talking to Tom Hart here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Let's go back to some of the games that happened this weekend. So we talked about the quarterback play in the SEC and just overall in college football. The Georgia-Florida game, it's pretty incredible because Florida probably wins that game or certainly has a much better chance if DJ Lagway doesn't go down. Just your thoughts on how Georgia is still winning games, but like they seem, I don't know if vulnerable is the right word, because the Georgia team that took on Texas was not vulnerable, at least for most of that game. But it's just, this is a different level of elite for Georgia and maybe for the conference.
Well, one thing I didn't mention when we were talking about like quarterback play not quite being elite and the roster turnover, the other thing that a lot of these coaching staffs are struggling with and just kind of trying to figure out as we go along is the length of this season. Because if you're Georgia, and we talked to Steve Sarkisian about this, by the way, with Texas, if you're Georgia or Texas, just to use 2 as an example, you go into the season planning on playing into late January. Like, that's the plan. So then you have challenges that you never had before in terms of keeping guys fresh. It's more like, it's more like sitting Joel Embiid, right? Like, well, hold on. Not that we don't care about a regular season game, but we've got to make sure that our guys are ready to go at the end of the year. And that sounds cocky and maybe a little egotistical, but the fact of the matter is, to demand focus over a 12-game season, week in and week out, takes an incredible level of energy. Then to do that for another month of playoff games, it's a real challenge. And those teams are already planning for that. To go back to Georgia specifically, when we were talking with Steve Sarkisian after that game, he mentioned the fact that they were able to beat Texas in ways not only with personnel, but also with coaching, that they have things that were dialed up and they were getting the quarterback with only 4 blitzers and 4 rushers, I should say. And that was something that Texas really had a hard time with. But at the same time, Sark was very honest about it. He's like, every time we try to draw something up, that coaching staff was ready for it. And they had something else ready to go. So I still think that Georgia is elite and they're a program that has the talent and the coaching and, generally speaking, the experience. But you just can't throw 3 picks in a game. I mean, you can't do that against great competition. And I think that is a real factor for Georgia. And in addition to that is watching, what the draft guys, I saw what Todd McShay was saying about Carson Beck. And he was very critical as every, first round quarterback, gets graded hard. He's going to start hearing that noise, and the family's going to start hearing that noise. Hey, this guy took a step back. What does that mean for his future? What team you're going to invest in this guy relative to what the expectations were coming into the season? And that brings with it an entirely different set of pressures for kids who are trying to win football games and trying to, establish themselves as a QB1.
Talking to Tom Hart on the Boss Firearms Hotline. Tom, who would have thought that Vandy, South Carolina would be a huge matchup in November? I mean, huge because both those teams are having great seasons. South Carolina can still win 9 games this year.
Have you played around with that matrix that somebody published it, where you can go in and plug in all these SEC results and then see, and it factors in all these tiebreakers, and you can see then who are the last 2 teams standing and who's going to make it to Atlanta. Have you seen that?
I have seen it. I haven't played with it, but I have seen it.
Oh my gosh! I mean, that's my new focus. I mean, I just spend way too much time on that. I guess it's better than Twitter. But my point being, like, kind of just for fun, I just keep going through and plugging these wins in for Vandy and moving other teams around just to see where they end up. I don't know that we've ever been in a position where Vandy's still in the thick of an SEC race in November. I mean, it's shocking that a team and a program that was just, what were they, 1-7 in the league last year?
Yeah.
You could turn around and be in the mix. That's the gift that No Divisions has given us, because, more teams can stay in it. It is going to be very confusing, and I don't think very healthy when we're going to have tiebreakers start to decide things. That's going to be a bitter disappointment for at least one, if not a number of fan bases once we get into December, knowing that, hold on a second. Like, I was looking at the ACC race. If I'm not mistaken, the result of a BC-Louisville game could decide whether or not SMU makes it to the ACC championship game. What? Like, what? How can something that happened 700 miles away from SMU's campus that they weren't involved in dictate whether or not they end up playing for a conference title and therefore a chance to play in the college football playoff? We've got to get to a point where we get to 9 games, I should say, in league play. That will make it easier. And I think if there's true chaos, thinking back to that 3-way tie in the Big 12, right, when Mike Leach was at Texas Tech, if there's true chaos, then they're going to have to take a long, hard look about going back to divisions in some way or some form. There's a reason the NFL has divisions, and sometimes you get average teams based on their overall record into the NFL playoffs. But the fact of the matter is, you can't just have a list of tiebreakers decide who gets a chance to play for a trophy. That's not how any of this is supposed to work.
Tom, last thing for you. Alabama, LSU, man. Where are you leaning? Is it Baton Rouge going to be the difference in this one? Because both those teams today could look up and be in the college football playoff rankings and be in a very favorable spot.
Well, yes, without a doubt. And I think that my recency bias is the last time I saw Garrett Nussmeier in a big game, he crumbled under the pressure and he threw 3 passes to A&M. Like, you cannot do that, number one. And the last time I saw that LSU defense in a big game, they were carved up by a mobile quarterback. Jalen Milroe is a mobile quarterback. This guy can run. He's not. They don't lean on his run game as much, obviously, as Marcel Reed and A&M do when he's in the game. So to answer your question, I think the odds makers, in my mind, should favor Alabama, not in a big way because that game is usually close. And I think that Kalen DeBoer learned a lot about coaching in this league and coaching this team when they lost to Vanderbilt. Going into that game, he told me, he said, I talked to my leaders about it. We all know that it's human nature to have a letdown after a big win like they had just had against Georgia. And so we've got to find the right message to these guys. But the mood of that discussion was very much, I trust my guys to be ready to play. I don't think Nick Saban ever left it to trust. He demanded that they be ready to play. And he was in their face, not just players, but the staff as well. And so there were never any questions about whether or not Nick Saban's Bama teams would be ready. So I think Kalen DeBoer learned that lesson the hard way with the loss at Vanderbilt. I don't think they're ever not going to be ready again. And it's going to be a more demanding head coach to make sure that he doesn't leave that to chance.
Tom, great stuff, brother. Appreciate your time.
Great to be with you.
Talk to you soon.
Have a great week. Enjoy college basketball.
Thank you, brother.
Taylor season is here.
Yeah, Buzz Williams and company start tonight.
Awesome.
See you, man. That was probably our most awkward outro ever. I just think there was a little pausing and a little talking over each other. I didn't like it. Did you like it?
It was a little awkward.
Yeah, I think this exchange is awkward too.
A little bit. You kind of put me on the spot here.
Yeah, a little bit. You know, I want to make sure you know you're on the show still. All right, we're going to do this. By the way, if you want to text the show, I think we're going to have an open segment because Billy is in the middle of something, so we'll get to some text messages on the Little Sluggers text line. Age-appropriate baseball fundamental classes in Aggieland, Houston, Austin, Brenham for kids 2 to 8. Sign up for a free trial at kotosports.com. That is COTOsports.com. Text or call the show. We'll have an open segment. Want to kind of get into some of the scenarios out there and also just think about what's going to happen this week for A&M. Get back to basics. Get back to – I'm going to say – well, I'll save it for the other side. But if you don't – I want to go through some of those highlights again. If you don't tackle with your arms – and Jackson, you played at a high level, you know. If you don't tackle with your arms, I don't know if A&M wins the game, but they might win the game. All right? They lost by 24. Hold that thought. We'll get to it on the other side. Because I want to show it because there's a lot of this happening. No. Sorry, I feel like a football coach. We'll talk about it on the other side. Right now, we're talking about Heritage Films. That is Chance McClain's company. The website is yourheritagefilm.com. They make documentary films about families. And you should be thinking to yourself, yeah, I think I kind of want one of those. You got the holiday season coming up. What a great time to reach out to Chance and consider having your family story done on the big screen. Well, the big screen, it's he'll do it for you, right? It'll not only be a DVD that you can keep for a long time, he'll have the digital copy for you. And these are 2-hour documentaries about your family and like all the things that make your family so unique. All the stuff, like for us, it's like the Cuban coffee in the morning when I go to my mom's house and I stay there. It's the smells, the furniture, just the things that make your family uniquely your family. Chance will capture that essence in a 2-hour documentary. And it could be about your grandfather, your dad, your uncle. It could be about your buddies that get together for golfing or hunting or whatever it may be. Let Chance and his team be an eye in the sky and tell that story in a 2-hour Netflix-style documentary. The phone number is 713-893-8341. Again, 713-893-8341. Or go to yourheritagefilm.com. That is yourheritagefilm.com. Can somebody tell me what song this is? I like it. Sorry, I don't know it. Is this on your playlist, Nick? Is this the Nick Savage jam?
That is Red Dirt Road by Brooks and Dunn.
Okay. Sounded familiar. I like it. Hey, we're TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. I think we'll get to Billy in a moment. Nick, since you're back, I kind of teased this. Can you, in the background, play a little bit of the highlights of this game? And I don't know if you have any of the defensive miscues actually put together. It doesn't matter, because I saw a couple plays of how many hand-tackling moments. There's one right there, and I believe that was, when was that? I don't know when that was. But you see how many opportunities they had to tackle Lenora Sellers, and some of these won't be necessarily that, or even Rocket Sanders. The yards, look at that, hand tackling. Jackson, you played football at a high level. Explain to the audience what the coaching is. And it's universal, right? Everybody, I know you have to grab if that's the closest thing you have to getting them, but it goes deeper than that. There's an actual technique behind it. What is taught?
Well, I think it wasn't necessarily that they were trying to arm tackle, which they were trying to arm tackle, but I think it was the fact that they weren't breaking down before the tackle. It seemed like a lot of over pursuit, and we even got a text from Jim in Temple, and he said that he thinks that first or second play of the game was a turning point in the game. When Scooby came unblocked and he had a free shot at Sellers, he said he tried for a highlight reel ESPN Sports Center kill shot, and he badly missed. Sellers rolled out, hit a 15-yard pass, and started their drive from there.
I mean, there's play after play after play of people having Rocket or Lenoris and not making the tackle or going for that ESPN highlight play. No doubt about that, And they beat him on the edges too. Billy Liucci is now here in studio. Hey, buddy.
Oh, Dave. Olin wants to know, he's listening right now. Do you want your pie, or do you want him to set that up at the break table for people in the office to enjoy? And I'm really putting you on the spot here. As if
I'm sorry, I don't even know about the pie.
You've got a pie. Someone brought y'all, and didn't bring me, someone brought y'all like Royer's pies from Round Top, and I think that's where they were from. And so there's a couple of pies.
Did they leave a name?
I don't know.
There's a gentleman at the gym that said he was going to bring pies at one point.
That must have been him. I don't know how many other people think of you and Olin and think, I'm going to bring those guys a pie.
Team pie.
Unless it's a pie in the face.
Oh, yeah.
But,
well played, sir.
Yeah, thank you. No, I saw a trick I'd like to play on somebody up there. Somebody stuck a broom. You know how the chair has, like an office chair has like the arm things?
Yep.
Kind of come up and go to. Someone ran up, stuck a broomstick across the guy's lap, almost like you're in like a roller coaster, shoved the broomstick, hit him with a pie. He got up to go after him for hitting him with the whipped cream pie, but the broomstick was there, so he got up with the chair and fell down, and it was like, I was thinking of who we could do that.
That would be great if they got a concussion and we all got fired. See, I'm the HR director sometimes with TexAgs.
Yeah, it might be. That's true.
Yeah.
That's a good point. Thank you. That's why you're here.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So do you want your pie for the family to enjoy, or do you want the pie for the office, your coworkers to enjoy?
Typically, I'd say the family, but since it's Halloween and we've got bags and bags and bags of candy, that my wife allows them to keep it, and they weigh it.
It's good to know, because now I get dessert. Thank you.
But you best leave me a slice of pie that I might try.
Okay. The Aggies
tackling is what we were talking
left a
about.
lot of. They didn't deserve post-game pie the other night, unfortunately. I heard y'all talking about the tackling. I agree, and I agree with the texter. Like, look, you can call this a 24-point game. You can call it a 10-point game, whatever. You can say, well, A&M just gifted a couple touchdowns at the end. One of them, I don't think they were not letting them score. It was a 50-yard, whatever, touchdown catch and run where you just horrific tackle attempt again.
Yep.
It's fitting they started and ended the game with terrible tackle attempts, because it was the storyline the whole game. But so in a game of multiple scores, a couple things I don't want to do that I do the other way, right? In a game of multiple scores, you don't want to say, man, one play changed this, or if this doesn't happen. And you got to be careful even when you start doing too many. But there's a handful that you go, okay, this would make it a different game. It's converting the fourth downs. It's not throwing the interception there early in the fourth quarter when you can cut it to 3 or 7 and you're inside their 30 on 1st and 10. It's Le'Veon's injury, obviously. But I'll go back and agree with the texter. I do think that second play in the game is massive because...
Sign of things to come.
Well, it directly, by the way, led to 7 points and an 11-play drive that I think really set the tone, too, for kind of like, hey, we're going to be physical with you guys, go down the field and wear you out. And it played into the whole script thing. You know, you got your script, especially after a bye week, your first couple series, settle your quarterback down, do all the things. Well, you go incomplete, and then you should have gone sack, 3rd and 17. Okay? Clear cut, straight shot to quarterback, 3rd and 17. That takes you out of your script there. You're not running script on that play. They're probably punting, 3 and out to start the game. And who knows what A&M does with a little better field position. I know the Aggies punted right away on their first drive, but they did score on their second. And I think, 4 of the next 5 drives. So, yeah, and also your defense would have been on the field 3 to start the game and not 11. And the mental part of giving up a touchdown, giving up several big plays, because that play you missed the sack on should have been about an 8-yard loss. Instead, it was a 20-yard gain. So that's a 30-yard swing in field position right off the rip. So it was a tone setter. I don't think it was like the game-changing play. The other one, I heard y'all talking this morning about Shamar Turner's personal foul. That's the one that bothers me less of some of the fouls I've seen him commit lately. You're getting blocked. You're diving. You're trying to make a play on a quarterback. You got to know to stay up in today's football. But that's a dude hustling to try to make a sack. It wasn't like egregiously late. It was just low. But you're low as you're trying to get through that block, and you've got the guy riding you into it. So I think, he kind of followed you, took the momentum right into the quarterback. So I think that one, it was a big penalty for sure. But the defensive holding on the next play that they called, because you had a sack, forced fumble, a run back for a few yards by Howell. I don't know exactly where he ended up, but you were right on the cusp, I think, of field goal range, especially with the way Bond was kicking. So had you gotten that, you might be up 23-17 at halftime and getting the ball and momentum, and ending the half with 2 touchdown drives on your last 2 possessions, and what would have at that point been a 23-3 run, 23-3 or 23-6 run to end the half, and you end it with a sack, forced fumble, getting that quarterback's head a little bit, speed up his clock, so make him a little more nervous about that rush. A lot of things had that play counted, a lot of things would have changed in my opinion. It wasn't just as simple as, well, you didn't have that 3-point momentum. I do think letting them score in that last minute was significant, though.
Let's hit a break.
But the way they just, by the way, let me say, the way they just took over the second half makes me think we might be putting a little too much into that one, because they came out and just kicked your ass in the second half, and they did it. They did it with physicality in terms of Sellers and Sanders, obviously. Sanders has had one of the best games I've seen in a while by a running back against he almost had 100 yards receiving.
Right.
250 yards of offense, basically, for this guy. One of the best games I've seen by a running back against a quality A&M defense. Again, this is not an elite defense. This is a good defense. Someone tried to tweet at me, an Aggie, self-loather. This defense hadn't been good all year. My ass, it hasn't been good all year. They've had moments in games where they haven't been good. This is a good defense. If you're calling it elite, no. They've had stretches of football where they've played elite football, but this is not. This is a good SEC defense.
They've been pretty elite at stopping the run until South Carolina. This is
a good SEC defense. There's no way to say otherwise. And for other than if you just pop in this tape.
Yep.
But for what Sanders did, it's been a while since I've seen a back. I go back to like Derrick Henry at Bama or Kamara, like that would do that to a good A&M defense.
Jackie Sherrill says, David, we still have a chance to win the SEC if the dominoes fall right and we win out, and that's absolutely still the case.
Is that Jackie Sherrill messaging you, or are you quoting him from the show?
He's texting me. He's emailing me. No, he wasn't on the show.
I thought he was texting the show. I was like, I didn't know Jackie would text the show.
No, he emailed me right there.
Okay, good.
The Jackie Sherrill. He's my friend. My good friend, Jackie Sherrill.
Him. You know who likes him more than anybody? My mom.
Yeah.
I've always said the story. She sat next to him on a plane and thought he was the nicest person she'd ever met, and he still asks about her to this day. So that's like 15 years ago. So.
We are 7
Dolores, big Jackie Sherrill fan.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of being at 7
Oh,
minutes late to
man,
the
never
break.
mind, Nuño. You catches how they would have the ball at the 26. So it was almost a guaranteed field goal had that one not been.
Let's talk about our partners at Southwood Valley Animal Hospital. Dr. Justin Casares and Dr. Lauren Casares took over ownership in 2022. They're awesome. Aggies, they're great. They're doing amazing things there with the location. They've been serving the Brazos Valley for over 30 years. They take care of Aggies. They take care of students. They take care of TexAgers, right? Dr. Justin, by the way, the 13th Aggie, 17 graduates in his family. They provide routine veterinary services and wellness visits, sick emergency visits, and surgical care. Those are the facts. They're also elevating medicine in the Brazos Valley, and they want to take care of you. As I mentioned, they take care of TexAgs subscribers. If you tell them you're a TexAgs listener, they'll take off $12 when you tell the receptionist at the desk about your first visit there. They'll take off those $12. And if you're a student, they're going to hook you up as well. All the students that listen to the show, that talk to us when we're walking to the games at Kyle and whatnot, make sure you go to Southwood Valley Animal Hospital and get your pets taken care of by the experts there at Southwood Valley Animal Hospital. The phone number, 979-693-9898. That is 979-693-9898, southwoodvalleyvet.com. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. We're in the Rollo Insurance Studio. It is the Go Hour presented by the... No, it's not. The heck? See, I'm in muscle memory mode. I'm about to call you OB, Billy Liucci.
You did, yeah, twice.
And then I was about to call the Angry Elephant Youth and Social Center by a different name earlier. I'm just not... You know what?
The game's got you flustered.
It's got me flustered, right? I just need to slow down.
You need to calm down.
I got happy feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
Calm it down.
Hey,
it's just noise.
I do want to read this one from Gridiron Masters on the YouTube page.
Okay.
He says Reed was clearly throwing the ball forward on that fumble. At that point, it didn't matter. The game was over.
Yeah, but I agree.
That's how I saw it.
The way they described it on TV, is it Lamagna, whatever his name is. I think they were saying like that the hit made the arm go forward. It's just always like, well, isn't that usually what's happening? But it was weird because he kind of threw it from right here. It wasn't like he wound up like he normally would do to throw it. It was kind of from right here. I agree. I mean, I think you could have overturned that and said, but I mean, it matters. There's an optic to it in terms of just hearing the crap you have to hear, but it didn't matter in the grand scheme of things. They weren't winning that game. They lost that game at that point. That was just insult to injury at that point.
I don't think losing Le'Veon Moss is the reason they lost the game, but it is a reason the offense started to stall. Absolutely. As good as Amari is,
100%.
Different type of running back.
And Amari, but Amari's such a great compliment to Le'Veon.
Yes.
And it means you've always got a threat on the field. And Amari, I mean, look, I know he had a 56-yard touchdown run. I mean, he had 83 yards. I thought he ran well. But especially when a team is trying to take away what Marcel Reed's doing, and they saw LSU and they said, we're not going to let him pull it and keep it.
Right.
And they had, 2 fumbles on the pull? Was it Bussey and Amari? Maybe he's got a little more of he and Le'Veon have a little more feel to that part of the game, number one. Number two, look, I think Amari Daniels is one of the, I keep saying it, one of the most underappreciated players on this team, and he might really prove it here in the next few weeks, especially, who knows, like when they say, hey, man up, you're carrying the load against Auburn and Texas, if that's what it has to be. We might be sitting there going, this guy is the storyline of Texas A&M reaching the SEC title game. He might go for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns and a win over Texas. Who knows? But it doesn't change the fact Le'Veon Moss is one of the best running backs in the Southeastern Conference. And I think he's just getting better and better. I think he brings a level of physicality and toughness and almost like just he had what they needed to match what South Carolina was doing.
Yep.
He had what they needed. Okay, that linebacker, you want to come in there and make hits like that on 3rd and 4th down? Let's see if you would have done that if I'm running into you with a 10-yard head start for 3 into the 4th quarter of that game. Let's see how much you're bringing towards the end. And I think that dude's good. He might have been bringing it still. But, someone to test that manhood. And that's what Le'Veon Moss has done to some good SEC teams already this year. And even if he wouldn't, he has a knack for ripping off big runs, in particular later in games. Just keeping Marcel Reed ahead of the chains on the road, helping that passing game by making those linebackers have to really worry about that. Okay, you're going to take away Marcel Reed. Le'Veon Moss is going to be running into some lighter boxes or at least even boxes. And with that factor, I think Le'Veon Moss would have had a big game running the football Saturday night. I really do. And that's a tough loss. And it's like you said, they played 10 out of 10 football that night. So you might have lost that game with Le'Veon Moss 34-31. I don't know. But where it really hurts is if you don't have him down this stretch, and that's TBD. We'll hear from Elko today, and either he'll say it's a season-ending thing, or he'll say, we'll see as it goes.
See. Let's hit a break. I want to play a what if game with you when we come back. Just what if, and what ifs kind of suck after a loss. But I just want to ask how you feel about something. Our moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. They have a decent selection of commercial vehicles with service body trucks, flatbed trucks, and several medium-duty trucks for those heavier jobs. They are locally owned and Aggie alumni operated. Complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers. Free oil changes for life on the purchase of your vehicle when you go to Caldwell Country Chevrolet. A couple years back, we bought our Tahoe in the summer. I think it was 22. And it's fantastic. We've been using it for the 2 years. And then when we had a little service issue, they took care of it, picked it up, brought it right back to us, and we're back to normal. That's what they do at Caldwell Country Chevrolet, along with great pricing and great trade-in value. It is about a 15-minute drive, the edge of Bryan to the beginnings of Caldwell. Short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot and do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell, online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. As a reminder, the final segment of the show is brought to you by Double Dave's. That's at 10:50, but right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggieland since 1984. They have your favorite pizza. They have your favorite world-famous pepperoni rolls, reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com and your favorites are on their way. As a reminder, they are not open on Mondays. All right, we got 2.5 minutes, Billy. I'm just going to ask this stupid question. I'm already telling you, it's stupid.
Let's hear it.
Does A&M potentially win this game if the missed tackles is 15, 17, not 25?
Yeah, but it was 25. I mean, yeah. I mean, okay. Here's my thing about Sellers. He was great the other night. And this takes me back to when we'd always say, man, this guy had a Superman performance, da-da-da-da. Well, yeah, it was because he was playing against bad Aggie defense.
Mm-hmm.
Guys would have Superman performances that weren't very good. But I've seen Sellers be really tough on Bama. I watched him be a nightmare for LSU until they rolled on his ankle. It wasn't a dirty play. I mean, he just sprained his ankle. It changed the whole football game.
It did.
And what Rocket Sanders is able to do off of that, like, it is a problem. But factually, I think he himself, if I'm not mistaken, has been sacked 25 times this year. He's been taken to the ground 25 times. Texas A&M, in about what felt like a dozen shots at him, did not take him down once. That's on the Aggies. I don't care. You could say Sellers played a great game, and he did. But he has proven that he's not capable of avoiding sacks. He's been dropped 25 damn times. They didn't get him once. Several, putting it conservatively, several times on clean runs at the quarterback.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and by the way, when you let the guy get downfield, good luck tackling him. And it sucks that everybody around, from Austin to Baton Rouge right now are laughing or talking about B.J. Mays getting run over. LSU fans, I don't think you can talk when the guy had 2 interceptions against you 7 days earlier. But what's happening is you've got 185, 190-pound DB trying to tackle a 250-pound guy that's running full speed at you. It's a problem. By the way, just side note about football, and I'm not calling for it because I like them to not call it. How is what Sellers did not targeting when you never see them call offensive targeting when the guy puts his head down, coils, launches head first into the guy. I'm all about it. It's football. Man up, right? But when are they going to start calling those the other way? It'll happen probably against A&M.
All right, we'll come back with hour number 3. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers in the Rollo Insurance Studio. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, hour number 3 of the program. Kind of dissecting, breaking down the game over the weekend. A game that I can't wait to watch and just move on from. But it is a Monday, so we will hear from Coach Elko in a few hours. He's speaking at 2 o'clock. Some of the assistants are speaking as well. So we'll have all the content for you on TexAgs.com. Billy, all right. So today the college football playoff rankings come out. I don't think A&M is going to be on there, although some people are predicting A&M to be there still because of what it's tomorrow. I'm sorry, tomorrow, not today. That's right. It's election day that's coming out.
By the way,
Yes,
Dennis
sir.
Allen fired.
I saw
Coach
that.
of the Saints. It's tough. I love DA. Obviously, they were struggling there for the last. Really, the whole they look like they might have caught some momentum early in the year and then get let go. But I've always liked DA since we were in college, and I don't know. It'd be interesting. He's not old, because if he's old, I'm old. He's not old, and I think he'll go back to being a defensive coordinator. But I'm saying this guy, if he wants to, could coach 20 more years as a DC. I don't think he'll do 20, but I think he's an elite DC, and I'm sure he'll just keep trying to give it a shot as a head coach. I don't know when that opportunity will come again, but I think he's like high-end NFL defensive coordinator, and he was always a great defensive mind even when he was here. Just a good dude and a winner.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of go through some position groups, and offensive line, the absence of Chase Basantas is pretty glaring.
For sure.
That was the first time, though, that I saw the offensive line take a step back.
I don't think they took a step back. I think they just, I know what you're saying, and I think it's just they ran into a defensive line that played better than they did.
Yeah.
They ran into a defensive line that got the best of them. I don't think that's a step back. I just don't you can't. I know you're not trying to say that, but I want to express what I'm saying. You don't take a step back just because you ran into a better unit. That's just
a better unit.
You ran into a better unit. You didn't play as well as you've been playing, but I think that was because of them.
The first time this year that I don't think A&M controlled the line of scrimmage on either side.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Like leaving that, the Notre Dame game, maybe they didn't control it the way I wanted to. But since that point, every game you'd be like, but we dominated the line of scrimmage, especially in the fourth quarter. That was not the case this week.
No, and look, Shamar Stewart and Nick Scorin could beat those tackles all day, but they were beating them on the outside, and Sellers was prepared for it. That he was coached up on what to do in that situation, and so it negated the fact that they could whip them to the outside routinely. The screen passes, they were letting blitzes come and throwing it to where the blitzes were. They were well coached up for what A&M was going to attack them with. But even that said, again, they still should have had several sacks, and they let him go. Even the D-line, I think Shamar Stewart had a clean shot on him, didn't get him. Albert Regis had a clean shot on him, didn't get him. There were chances, plenty of chances for the guys up front, linebackers, blitzers, everything, and they couldn't do it. So, yeah, I do think they certainly lost the battle in the trenches on both sides. I think you get a couple of those sacks, and you can change that game around in terms of how the D-line fared. I disagree. I heard y'all this morning. I don't think you question how good the defensive line is. I think that's putting too much into this game and being a prisoner of the moment, as you like to say, and overreacting to it in a negative way, which I think we tend to try to do around here because we think that's what everyone wants to hear. This is a damn good D-line. Did they have a damn good game the other night? No, I would say they had a bad game. Against an O-line that week in and week out, I think they would have been better than. I think South Carolina schemed it well, and I think their quarterback helped make it look that much better because you couldn't stop him. But you can look at sack numbers, you can look at whatever, and I almost felt like y'all glossed over, no, they didn't only get 2 sacks against LSU. They whipped their ass for 30 minutes of O-line that I've been told is the best in the country.
Yep.
They made Will Campbell and now I'm forgetting the other guy's name on the right side. Another projected first rounder. They made them look bad. Emory Jones. They got into them on the inside. They whipped them. They whipped their butts up and down the field in the second half. They caused Nussmeier to panic into 3 turnovers. They allowed 24 yards rushing in the game. I got news for you. That starts up front. So when you hold Florida to 50 and you hold LSU to 24 and you hold Arkansas when their offense is on the field to 75 and you hold Missouri to 40 or whatever it was, like your defensive line has been elite since like the first game. So, where they weren't even bad against Notre Dame, but your defensive line has been elite, and they were far from it. They were bad on Saturday night.
So I'm
not changing what we know about this O-line unless the same thing happening against Auburn and Texas, and you go, okay, well, that's 3 games plus Notre Dame where they were, that's 4 games, that's a third of the season. You throw out the New Mexico State. It's basically half your meaningful games. So far, that number of games where I've gone, this defensive line didn't play well, is sitting at a grand total of 1, and they've played 9 football games. So I'm not going there. So are they like Georgia, peak Kirby Smart? Are they like Bama, peak Nick Saban? No. Are they as good as any defensive line in the SEC? Yes. But I'll tell you what, South Carolina made their case this weekend. They were the best defensive line on the field Saturday, and I was hoping going into that game that A&M was going to take that to heart. And I thought, man, there's so much talk about South Carolina's D-line. These guys have got to be on a chip and going, hey, hold on a second now. What about us? And they didn't go out and prove it. And I thought South Carolina's defensive line did. And that's not always apples to apples, Nuño.
Right.
But I think Marcel Reed's pretty tough to tackle, too, for different reasons. And I think the A&M O-line is actually better than the one that the Aggie defensive front was going against.
Are we overreacting to this team as a different team on the road? So we can take it in parts, right? You got the Florida game. You were fantastic on the road. These are talking.
I know, but I'm not annoyed at you. I'm like, what the hell are we doing after a game? Like, what are we doing? Go ahead. I mean, I'm listening. I know you're saying what people are saying, but let's hear it.
I'm asking a question.
My first response to that will be, what teams in the SEC aren't different on the road? Sure. We're not talking about a team that's lost 10 in a row on the road anymore.
No, we're not.
Starts with the start of this season.
Florida, they were fantastic on the road. Neutral site game, fantastic in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say they were fantastic before the fourth quarter.
Sure.
Okay. Mississippi State, not their best performance. Yeah. They won convincingly. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then this performance.
Okay.
And then I agree with you that is life in the SEC. Yeah. But it is a question to discuss on a Monday after your
why though when it's one game?
Because it's the most poor performance of the year. Okay,
it's the most poor. It's the most poor, the poorest performance of the year in the toughest environment they've played against a team with a bye week that, quite frankly, was a tough matchup. I still sit here today? I think A&M should go into South Carolina and win that football game. I think the Aggies are a better football team. I think this whole season has proved that out until Saturday night. It's hard to say that when South Carolina gives you not on your head like they did. Again, though, play them again, neutral field. I would put my money on the Aggies. I probably would. Actually, no, to be honest, I wouldn't bet it because I thought going in that South Carolina could win that game. They were a good football team whose record could have easily been sitting the same as A&M.
If I knew you had Le'Veon Moss, and I'm not saying that's the only difference in the game. Please, if I know you have Basantis and Le'Veon Moss, you play 10 times. I'm at a neutral site field. I'm probably taking A&M 6 of those 10.
Yeah, but it's just, it is what it is. You're not full power.
You lost by 24.
South Carolina's got tackled Le'Veon and hurt him. It wasn't a dirty hit. It's just, it's open field, very physical tackle. It sucks that he got hurt, but I'm not sitting there. That's football. They would have beaten LSU had Sellers not gotten hurt. My thing is, no, I'm not going to entertain the discussion of them on the road. It is the Southeastern Conference. It's why Tennessee goes to Arkansas and gets beat on one given night when they had no business losing to them. It's why, who else has got, like LSU came in here and got overwhelmed by this environment and the Aggies' emotion and energy in the second half. Just like A&M went into South Carolina, got overwhelmed by the environment and the energy. It's why Georgia went into Alabama against a team they'd probably beat 8 out of 10 and were down. Not only did they lose, they were down 28-0 to start the game. It's why Bama the week later goes to Vandy, and it's not a daunting road environment, but it's away from their home environment. They were a different team. It's why they go to Knoxville and lose. It happens, man. So if they would have looked really bad every time they've left Kyle Field, I would say yeah. But yes, I do think they're not as good away from home as they are at home. I think the only teams that typically are the like true championship level programs and teams. And I don't think A&M's there. I think A&M is part of a crowded pack atop the SEC right now. And that's a good thing because we didn't think they'd be there in year one. And most coaches in year one aren't there in this conference. So, yeah, I think this is just, we're getting into this world, Nuño.
But I had a follow-up to it.
Okay, but I think we're getting into this world where a lot of people are like looking for something to knock other than to say they got their butts kicked. How big does Le'Veon Moss being out hurt for whenever he's out? What did you see the other night that either worries you about Auburn or Texas in terms of the matchup? See, to me, I'm like getting to the outside and getting the edge like they did. I don't want Hugh Freeze and 27 to be doing that at Auburn. Offensively, can they push the ball down the field? I don't want DJ Durkin to be able to play a game in a phone booth. You know, these are the things I'm looking at, and it's not, man, they had one stinker away from home, so let's define them as that.
Here goes my follow-up. Because I think we all know how
I know
good
what you're going to.
Where am I going to?
I think you're going to Texas at home, and this team.
I'm actually going to talk about Texas to get to Auburn. Okay. I did it with OB. I'm going to do it with you, right? Okay. So we all know this is a excellent team at home, correct?
Agreed.
Right? Struggle a little bit on the road. Who doesn't? Excellent at home. Okay.
Definitely better at Kyle Field.
I think they match up well with Texas, in my opinion. From what I've seen, I think A&M will be able to get to Quinn Ewers or Arch. I think that's what I believe.
Agreed.
Okay. So I'm not saying they're winning that game. I'm saying that is a very winnable home game, which then brings me loop around to the game before that, Auburn.
Yep.
And how important that game is, because I do believe that a good A&M team on the road wins that game, not the team that we saw against South Carolina, sets up a playoff game against Texas.
For sure.
De facto playoff
For sure. I mean, for me to say that nothing we've seen would say this is a bad road team, what they are is like everybody in the SEC that plays at real environments. They're much better at home. And Arkansas sucks to beat elite teams, you know. And I know the Aggies barely beat them. It was neutral. It was Marcel Reed's second game, and again we watched that first half and felt like the Aggies should have been up like 28-14. Ole Miss did that to them. Who went up there? LSU did that to them. They fight, they try to hang in, and teams pull away. That's what A&M didn't do. They should have pulled away there in the first half there. But for Tennessee to go in there and they rise up and beat Tennessee, they're only doing that at home. They are not going on the road and do it. By the way, they did go win at Auburn. That has not been a tough place to play for anyone this year. But Auburn's better at home. A&M's not as good on the road. That's where these SEC things become scary. So just from the standpoint of playing at Jordan Hare, it's tough anyway. We saw it a few years ago with a team that was dead and buried at Auburn. They packed that place out. They got momentum. They won.
Cadillac.
That part was going to scare me no matter what. And their athletes on both sides of the ball are going to scare you no matter what. And so that is a game that, yeah, you look at and you go, man, that is a trap game. I don't think South Carolina was a trap game because I think South Carolina is a good football team.
And a bad matchup.
Tough matchup. But I still don't think it was necessarily it was a tough matchup because their D-line was one of the few I think that could get the best of the Aggie offensive line. and they're a high TFL, high takeaway team, and that's a tough matchup for a young quarterback if he's not going to get that protection and if you can't truly be two-dimensional down the field. And I think Marcel will get there. But for that one, on the road, at night, coming off a bye week, with what they should have done to Alabama, should have done to LSU, you felt like they had one in them, and you knew their past history in November shows that they have one in them with Beamer. He's done this before. I mentioned the Tennessee game that same year, 2 years ago. They went and beat the crap out of Clemson a couple weeks later. It's almost like Buzz Williams, where his teams seem to peak late. Shane Beamer's seem to do that as well. So I think that it wasn't necessarily a bad matchup on paper, because to me, if you play that game again and going in, I would have thought the A&M defense could have held South Carolina to where, did I think the Aggies could win with 20? No. If you'd have told me A&M would have scored 27,
I think
which they really should have, then I would have thought they would have won that game. I thought they would have held South Carolina in that, 20 to 24 range. If they can play that game consistently, and maybe even less on a good day. That part surprised the hell out of me. That was where you tip your cap to South Carolina, and you also say, A&M, what were you doing tackling? So matchup-wise, I don't think Auburn is so much a bad matchup. I just think it's a daunting – that's more of a trap. Not because of talent. They got the talent, but I think it's a trap because of what their record is. And you're going on the road before such a big game. So it's a test. And A&M is going to be bye week, New Mexico State, then Auburn. It's a pretty big jump from 1 week to the next to that. So Elko will have to do a good job of getting them ready. But, man, I'm with you. You get the 12th man behind this team at home against Texas, which I do think, look, we'll break this down like crazy. I think it's a bad matchup of those deep balls over the top to those receivers, but I think this defense is a lot better at home, like a lot of elite SEC defenses are. And I think the way they dial up pressure is something Quinn Ewers typically hasn't fared great against if he doesn't have the protection. And I think the Aggies do a great job of beating protection. But that getting the ball to guys in space against blitzes and against pressure, that's where it gets tougher against Texas. And I think their D-line against A&M's O-line will be where that game's won or lost. So I'd love to see Basantis back and them to have that running game going.
All right, we'll hit a break. I got a quarterback question for you. And we got to talk a little basketball season that starts later on tonight. Lewis Engineering, machine shop located in Marshall, Texas. They're awesome there. They'd like to become your premier metal fabrication supplier. They've been around for a long time, since 1961. Lewis Engineering has supplied the Defense Department, aerospace, automotive, oil field industries, and quality metal components. You got Doug Lewis there, who runs the show. He's awesome. He's a good old Aggie, class of 2004, fourth generation to own and operate Lewis Engineering. And they have all the services that you would want. All right, they've got the CNC machining, they've got the stamping, the assembly, the welding, the plating, the painting, the salt spraying, the testing. They want to make sure that you understand that they are a certified company who takes quality, on-time delivery serious. They specialize in high volume production as close to tolerance projects. They invite you to outsource machining to a company that many, many, many Fortune 500 companies have trusted over the last 63 years. Call Doug Lewis for a free quote, 903-938-6754. That is 903-938-6754, or visit them online at lewisengineeringco.com. You're really good at what you do. Rollo Insurance is very good at what they do. Find out, because my family knows we've been using them for a long, long time, and what thousands of other Aggies in this community are coming to understand. And they are the ones to take care of you when you need your insurance. Rollo Insurance means they're going to take care of it when it comes to gamesmanship with insurance. Go to RolloInsurance.com. Rollo Insurance means you're out when it comes to gamesmanship with insurance. Go to RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs and initiate your relief with Rollo today. They've been taking care of my family since we moved to this area, but you don't have to be in this area. They got 60 offices in Texas. RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs, or call them up, 888-44-ROLLO, or again, go to RolloInsurance.com/TexAgs. Billy, what'd you make of Coach Elko when asked about the starting quarterback moving forward? That Marcel was our starting quarterback today, and he was it for today. Basically, is how he phrased it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to do that. He's kind of sad. He's going to do that all year.
Yeah.
And at this point, with 3 games left, 2 SEC games left, I think you should. I think you're trying to win these 2 games, man. I was talking to Alyssa and CD this morning on SEC Now, and it's like, hey, it's a weird place, because in year 1 under a head coach, with the way this season has gone in terms of that position, you probably go all in with Marcel to see what the future looks like there. But it's weird because Connor's got actually 2 more years if you want him. He's got another year. So you still have a guy that also could be the future that we've just, a lot of people have just forgotten about. But I thought Marcel played a good half and then a bad half. Or not even a bad, he just struggled. I mean, anytime you have 2 turnovers, it's a bad half. Connor had a bad half, second half against Mississippi State. That's a bad half, second half against South Carolina. But I still thought he showed a lot of poise, a lot of leadership. He was getting harassed, pressured. But so normally you would just go with 10 probably and go, okay, this is the future, or we need to find out if he is the future, give him all the reps we can, because that quarterback decision is so important year in and year out. But at the same time, you're playing for an SEC title. You really are. And I know it doesn't feel like that today. Again, you're going to be favored on the road in 1 game. You're going to come home, and you're favored on the road against a team that's, 3-6 overall. And you're going to come home and play a team in a rivalry game at home that, even though they were ranked number 1 a few weeks ago, has looked anything but invincible. They look like a really good football team. A damn good football team in Austin, but not elite like some of these other title contenders we've seen out of the SEC over the years. And Texas fans, I think, recognize that now, and they still should have plenty to be hopeful for. But this stuff they were chirping earlier in the year, how they were trying to compare, they literally, and a lot of them now will tell me, no, we weren't doing that. You might not have been. The people that I talk to don't say that, because they tend to be much more guarded, much more reasonable and rational. But the ones that I see on Twitter that come at me and come at fan bases around the SEC, come at the Aggies, everyone else around the country, around this league, we're basically comparing themselves to 2019 LSU. And that is a fact. A lot of Texas fans were doing that. Some people that cover Texas were doing that. Some social media accounts were doing that. They're not that, but they're really damn good. And let's not lose sight of that fact. But A&M's pretty damn good, too. Their body of work has shown it. They were not pretty damn good Saturday night. They looked pretty damn beatable, and that's what South Carolina did to them. But that's 1 game, and you're coming home. This is a body of work. There's a reason everybody in the country was picking A&M to win that game, even though they knew it would be tough, because they thought A&M was doing this. Just like LSU, it doesn't fall off a cliff and tank after 1 loss on the road in this league. So, no, I think this where this season's going, there's still a ton to play for. So you have to play to win each game every week. And I think that's what Mike Elko is going to do. And I think he's going to keep that quarterback position as fluid as it needs to be. But I think they've made a pretty strong commitment in terms of to Marcel. So I think, Marcel, I would be shocked outside of just, if he just really, just frankly, like stunk it up at practice the next couple of weeks, I think they'd go with him against New Mexico State.
You'd expect to see Connor in that game too, though, right?
Yeah. And I also think if there's, and assuming Marcel plays well against New Mexico State, I think he goes against Auburn, but I think it's a situation where if your quarterback struggling early in the game noticeably, then you go and make the change. So, like, I think had Connor played the first half against Mississippi State like he did the second, I think you could have seen a second half change. I think if Marcel would have turned it over 2 times in the first half,
you could have seen
and the Aggies hadn't scored a point, into the 4 drives into the game,
you would have seen a change.
I think you could have seen a change. Yeah. What Marcel did in the first half was 150 yards, a touchdown, 20 points. They're on pace to score 40, and 4 of their last 5 drives they scored points, including 14 on their last 2 possessions. So, yeah, had you flip-flopped it, I do think Elko is sitting there the rest of the way, reserving the right to make a change. But I do think after that LSU game, I think that was a turning point, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
We'll hit a break. We'll come back. We'll talk some Aggie basketball. Then I also want to talk a little bit about the other storylines in the SEC. Let's talk Milliken Reserve farm-to-table community in College Station. They got homes, they got trails, they got wide open spaces, and they got a mission to build a healthy community around nature. They're dedicated to the conservation of a healthy community. They have respect for that native landscape and that wildlife. 2,600 acres of open space, farms, and trails. They connect families to nature and to each other with an extensive network of trails throughout a wooded landscape that includes walking and equestrian paths, creeks, ponds, gathering areas. They're a place for families to cherish generation after generation. They have all the animals you can imagine in those preserved woods and ponds. You've got the white-tailed deer, the songbirds, the rabbits, and the turtles. And homeowners at Milliken Reserve sharing a legacy of conservation. Learn more at millikenreserve.com. That is millikenreserve.com. We're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. It is hour number 3 of the show. A bunch of text messages coming in. We'll try to get to some of those here in a moment, but a couple different storylines to get into. Let's talk for a moment, if you can, Bill. I called you Bill. I've never done that before. Aggie basketball starting off on a rare road season opener against Central Florida.
Yeah. Somebody else was asking me that. Like, Aggies are starting on the road, and, most Power 4, whatever programs I don't think do that, but I'm cool with it. Like, go out there and test this whole non-conference schedule. A&M's, testing themselves. You look at schools like, in that tournament, and then Wake and Tech and Purdue. I mean, you talk about testing yourself out of conference. They're probably, Creighton. Creighton's always elite. Like, that's
number 15 in the country.
Yeah, and they might be better than that. I mean, they're usually like a top 10. I think if you're really being honest about programs in the last few years, Creighton's a top 10 program.
Yep.
So I love the schedule. Do it. Challenge yourself. I want to see A&M win a higher percentage of those games this year than they did last year. And I think they can with what they've got and what Buzz has got in terms of experience. A star player at the top. He's got glue guys like lunch pail, but also really damn good. I don't even want to call Anderson Garcia a lunch pail guy. He's just doing something that a lot of people wouldn't fully commit themselves to doing, which is absolutely dominating the glass. Solomon Washington, some of these transfers that they've brought in, heard great things about, getting them from places like Minnesota and SMU, and they're going to get big contributions there. So this team should be really good this year. This team should be one of the better teams in the SEC, but they're going to test themselves really early, starting tonight at UCF.
First time to start off on the road in 23 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Damn. That I did not know. That I was unaware. Yeah, usually at least there's that one gimme game at home that you almost forget basketball season starting because it's like such a nondescript game in a football week. It's fine, man. Buzz continues to upgrade that non-conference schedule, and I like the fact that he's doing it as his teams get better too. I think that's to keep. And don't forget, they tested themselves in the preseason against Baylor and U of H as well.
Our weekly hits with Buzz start next Monday. So
okay,
we'll have
perfect.
Good. Buzz on Mondays, I believe at 10 a.m. So looking forward to having Buzz on the show. All right, let's get back to the storylines in the SEC. Got a lot of good games coming up this weekend, but kind of tying a bow on what happened this past weekend.
Yeah,
I'm sure you were watching that Georgia-Florida game and thinking to yourself, man, Florida, if
and that was before the Aggies lost.
Right. Mertz or Lagway in that game, right? If you had Lagway for the whole game, if you had Mertz, who was playing really well a few weeks earlier, I don't know if they win because you don't know how it plays out, but offensively they would have been better.
Yeah, they were terrible once he got hurt, and it's a tough break for Lagway. He could have played some really important games down the stretch for Florida, especially this coming weekend, coming home to Texas and playing in Austin. It's remarkable to me that Texas is going to play Florida's third-string quarterback right when they start to get good. They beat the crap out of Kentucky. They take Tennessee to the overtime. They give Georgia all they want. I mean, with their backup and then their third string, and then all of a sudden now you're facing a third string transfer from Yale. So, lucky break for Texas. They're quite literally might get Florida's third string and Arkansas's backup, neither one of whom is a threat to complete any passes. And sets up nicely for the Horns. That's fine. It doesn't matter what happens to Texas. I guess there's some phantom world where A&M could be a 2-loss team, and there's this massive tie-up, and they get in. We haven't really explored that, with a bunch of teams with 2 losses. But the reality is you have to beat Texas to get into the SEC title game. So at this point, it doesn't really matter what Texas does, other than you just want to see the Longhorns lose, which, no offense, my Longhorn friends, but we all do. But with that said,
they're probably not.
With that said, it doesn't matter, and it actually will help A&M more if Texas does win out,
and
comes in here and you beat them. In terms of if you beat them, you're going to the SEC title game. Well, what if you played Georgia and lost 3-loss A&M team, they're going to, in one world, they're going to try to push you out in that case. And that's where the South Carolina one could be a killer. But if you have that win over Texas and you have 3 top 10 wins at the time the games are played, and you beat a Texas and an LSU team that are in the playoff chase, yeah, I mean, that would be a massive win. So you actually, if you're an Aggie, you want Texas to win their next 3 and come into Kyle Field ranked, 3rd in the country or so.
And you also want LSU to beat Alabama this weekend.
Do you?
Alabama's got...
It doesn't matter.
I guess
it doesn't really matter, actually. I mean, it doesn't, quite frankly, I don't think it matters unless you want, I get like some of you that are like number nerds and you're thinking of there's some 5 teams with 2 losses formula that A&M gets in. Okay, fine. But I'm just looking at it like, just being real, if there's an A&M Georgia LSU tie, I believe the people have said that if that happens, A&M and LSU are in.
Not Georgia.
Not Georgia. So if you would prefer to play an LSU team that you already beat versus Georgia, then you do want LSU to win out. But I don't think Bama to me really doesn't matter because, again, if A&M loses to Texas and that's their second conference loss, it probably means Texas has won, and somebody out of Georgia, LSU, or Tennessee is likely to also end up with 1. I know there could be total carnage, but for now, I think I'd rather see Texas continue to win.
What do you make of what has happened to Arkansas? And it's as simple as Taylor Green gets hurt a lot, and that team does nothing offensively when he gets hurt.
Yeah, and he's not that good anyway. But he's difficult. It's a huge drop off for them. But I don't think he's anything special. I think he's tough to defend. But I don't think he takes them. He makes them. There's a huge fall off though without him, and he gets banged up because of the way he plays and because of how bad their line is. Simple as that. So they're just not that good. They're respectable, but they're not. I think they have to beat Missouri to get into a bowl game. Frankly.
Do you think South Carolina ends up winning 9 games?
You got to beat Clemson to get there, right?
Yep. They got Vandy this weekend.
Where's that game at?
I've got it right here. They are at Clemson. This is their schedule.
I could see South Carolina winning out, but I could also see them go lose to Vandy this week.
I could too.
Vandy's a good quality team. Are they great? No, they're a good quality team. They're going to play a bunch of low-scoring, close games. With the exception of Bama, that was high-scoring and close.
I think they bamboozle Missouri.
I mean, I could see South Carolina doing some of this, but I also watch them, and I'm like, damn, their defense is good enough that I think, like, Pavia and Vandy will have a hard time with them. Their defense is good enough that they could go out there and wreak havoc on Cade Klubnik if they get after him. So, yeah. I don't know if I'm ready to go all in on South Carolina winning 9, but if you said, hey, bet your money right now one way or the other, and I'll give you some decent odds, that'd be a fun bet to make because I do think they could be a problem for Clemson.
Especially the Clemson team that showed up this weekend.
Well, yeah.
That team was horrible. But then again, in that, it kind of goes back to the A&M. That's kind of where we are in college football. The SEC is its own juggernaut for sure. Mm-hmm. But like in college football, you can go on the road and lose to a Louisville team and look bad in the process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you had, what was it, Kentucky, Tennessee. I didn't get to watch that game.
Close game.
28-18. Kentucky's a team that I just don't think they can score enough points.
No, they thought they had some answer in Vandegrift. That's not the case. I don't think that Mark Stoops is the answer. I just think some coaches like pedestrian offenses follow them around. And that's what I think happens with him. I don't think he's ever going to shake that. Which is what made me nervous about, not that among the things that made me nervous about that hire.
And does Oklahoma get to bowl eligibility? They've got Mizzou, Alabama, LSU.
Well, I think that's very obvious. I mean, they'd have to beat. Do they have to win 2 of those 3 or 1?
They have to win 1 more.
They'd have to beat Mizzou.
At Mizzou, by the way.
Mizzou and Arkansas are kind of like. Mizzou is kind of, I think, going to define if Arkansas and Oklahoma get to a bowl game.
Right.
I don't think Missouri's that good, but man, I think Oklahoma stinks.
Oklahoma does stink. All right, we'll hit a break here. We'll come back with some final thoughts here on TexAgs Live. Right now, we're talking about career opportunities with the Association of Former Students. If you are in Aggieland or want a reason to move back to Aggieland, you should look at the Association of Former Students. They're seeking to hire professionals to join their team. There are positions open in fundraising, former student programs, and much, much more. They are the nation's premier alumni association and the oldest organization serving A&M in support of that Aggie network. They play a part in every Aggie story from Howdy to here. Don't miss opportunities to help out the association with Howdy Socials, Aggie Ring Day, class reunions, Aggie Muster, and everything in between. Join a team that exemplifies those Aggie core values of excellence, integrity, leadership, loyalty, respect, and selfless service, all in support of that worldwide Aggie network. If you are interested in joining a team or sharing with someone that would be a great fit, please visit tx.ag/association jobs. That is tx.ag/association jobs to apply and get more information on each position. It is the Association of Former Students. We're back. TexAgs Live. We are presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Rollo Insurance Studio. It is hour number 3, the final few minutes of the program. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. We've got Jackson Oxney there. Jackson.
Yeah, we got someone in the YouTube chat says he's got a positive from the game.
All right. Jabby Barber Randy Bond.
Yeah, he says,
Yeah.
I love what I've seen out of Jabri Barber in his limited snaps. Truly a great get out of the portal.
Yeah, he was really one of the offensive weapons all game long, Billy. Like when you needed some plays, he found a way to find a crease and get open.
Yeah, he's been 2 of the last 3 weeks now has been a factor. He had the touchdown. Look, they need more out of Noah. I want Noah Thomas to be a consistent 4 or 5 catch guy for 65, 70 yards. Like I think he can be that guy. If you get that and Jabri continuing to trend the way he does, I think that you got something real to work with there. Noah pulled up. He got injured on one of those plays. I think he'll be fine, especially with the bye. But I mean, that was right after a good catch by him, a good play. I mean, he played all right, but I think those for A&M to win these next 2 games, I think those 2 guys are going to make things happen in the passing game.
Yeah.
And I feel good about where they're both at, but I think they're both going to have to do it. Like to beat Texas, they're both going to have to do it in a game. To beat Auburn in Texas, they both have to do it against Auburn to make Texas have to go, man, we're still going to risk it, but these guys can be a problem. And so, especially in the red zone, if the Aggies can run the football and Marcel does what he does, as a dual threat, creating, getting open, you got to have guys that can get open inside the 10-yard line. And I think they're both in different ways, a problem for defenses inside, close to the goal line.
Jackson?
Yeah, and just to talk more about Jabri, he had a season high 7 receptions for 80 yards and his first touchdown as an Aggie as well.
Yeah.
And he was A&M's highest graded player according to PFF, earning a 78.4 grade. So
it's great. And you mentioned Randy Bond. I think Bond they had a little trouble this week in the punting game. Not trouble, but Tyler Wright's been outstanding all year. It was not his best night. It was nothing like what we saw a week ago against LSU, where he's one of the unsung heroes. But Randy Bond, wire to wire, has been incredible this year. I think his only 2 misses came on that weird field at Florida.
Yeah.
In a blowout too. I think they came late when kind of like, I mean, you still
It was,
obviously
I think, third quarter.
Yeah, it was. They were up comfortably. They were for him. They're all pressure kicks. He wants to make all of them, but he's been nails this year. And if you're talking about like guys that do what their job is to do, and like you're looking at guys like him, Le'Veon Moss, probably Nick Scorton, Trey Zune, those guys on a short list of like, how well have you done your job over the course of 9 games this season? Bond is way, way up there.
Jackson, any more?
Yeah, I got a text from Bruce from Belton. He just has 3 points that he made. He said, South Carolina is very good, much better than 4-3 looked on paper, which we kind of talked about already. But Aggies did the worst thing they could do against their quarterback, which was to get pressure but not get him down.
Yeah.
Third point was that all of it's easily fixable, as they just need to break down when tackling and not fly in as fast and over pursue.
Well, and again, like, they're not going to play another 6'6", 250-pound quarterback. They're also not going to play, Jarquez Hunter is a terrific running back of the level of Rocket Sanders, a healthy Rocket Sanders, which we finally saw. But they're not going to play a 240-pound tailback and a 250-pound quarterback. They're not going to play either, much less both. So that was a unique test for this Aggie defense. It was a test that they did not pass, obviously. But they're not going to see anything like that again unless they win the SEC and go to a playoff. Because also in the SEC title game, I guess there's a world where they could see like a Jalen Milroe. But Georgia doesn't have that. Texas doesn't have that. LSU doesn't have that. Tennessee doesn't have that. I know those guys to varying degrees are mobile, but nothing like what they saw this weekend. So that's behind them unless if they meet up with somebody like that again, I don't know where they're at, but it means they're doing it in the playoff.
That'd be great.
So I'll take that. Yep.
All right, so tomorrow on the program, let's see what we have. We're going to start our basketball coverage with Justin Lanham. He'll join us on the show. Be good to catch up with him. We'll talk to Jamie McCoy. We'll talk to Jamie Morrison. We will talk to Jordan Pugh, and we'll talk to Shireen Williams. So it'll be a stack show. That's going to do it. Sorry, sir?
Nothing, David. Just making sound effects over here.
I appreciate the sound effects. They're very good. That is going to do it for TexAgs Radio on a Monday. We will get to your text messages tomorrow. I started the outro probably 20 seconds earlier than I wanted to, so I'm going to just tap dance for a moment, tell you your hat looks really nice on you. I like your jacket. I'd wear it.
I do like this jacket.
I'd wear
It's
it.
wool season by date, not by temperature. But, it's 68 in here, so we're good with it.
That's what we call tap dancing. Thank you so much, Billy. And thank you to all of you for watching and being a part of this program. We will catch up with you mañana.